Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to really cut through the noise of what we think matters and get straight to what ultimately endures. We are diving into a monumental philosophical experiment, the exhaustive study of human endeavor conducted by the teacher, Koheleth, who is traditionally identified as Solomon, the wisest king of antiquity.
And this isn't just a casual reflection. This is a radical reevaluation of every metric of success we hold dear. We're analyzing a staggering collection of sources, really the observations and conclusions laid out in the Book of Ecclesiastes. This teacher, he wasn't interested in a shallow assessment. He was conducting, a controlled, comprehensive study to determine the ultimate return on investment for a human life.
But a life lived purely on earthly terms.
Purely on earthly terms, that's the key.
And he just throws down the gauntlet immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no gentle easing into the concept here. The central arresting theme just explodes onto the page right in the first few lines. Futile, futile, laments the teacher. Absolutely futile. Everything is futile.
It's the ultimate mic drop, isn't it? Right at the beginning. But to grasp the depth of that claim, we have to unpack that core concept, the word that's often translated as vanity or futility.
Right.
It's the Hebrew word hevel. And it doesn't mean pride or narcissism the way we often use vanity today. It literally means vapor, breath, or smoke.
So it's something you can see for a second, but you can't hold on to it.
You can't grasp it.
It's a sense of being ephemeral, lacking real substance, value, permanence, or any ultimate significance. It's what you might call a spiritual zero-sum game. You can work and achieve, but when you reach out and try to grab hold of it,
it's nothing. It's just smoke that immediately dissipates.
Exactly. Our sources define it perfectly.
Right.
It emphasizes how swiftly earthly things pass away and how little lasting satisfaction they offer while you possess them. Life is fleeting, just like a puff of smoke that vanishes into the air. If you build an empire that lasts for, say, 3 generations, in the grand sweep of time, that empire is hevel. And this is where the mission of our deep dive becomes so critical. The teacher limits his observation to life under the sun. That phrase is absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Oh, it's everything. It sets the boundary for his entire philosophical experiment. He's looking exclusively at earthly life, at secular human endeavor, without introducing the variables of, supernatural intervention, grace, or eternity.
So he's asking the biggest question there is.
The biggest one. What ultimate purpose or lasting meaning in life can be found solely within the constraints of the natural, material world? What if we isolate every human accomplishment and achievement from any kind of divine context? What do you have left?
And his conclusion, which, it permeates the entire source material, is just bleak.
Yeah.
Despite all human secular accomplishments across all fields, all generations, all efforts, man makes no ultimate lasting impact on the earth.
Everything is ultimately motion without consequence. It speaks to human limitation, our frustration, and just this vast, vast gap between God's knowledge and our own relative ignorance.
So, can we achieve lasting profit, ultimate wisdom, or permanent happiness by sheer human will?
The teacher, who had more resources than anyone, concluded definitively, no, these things are simply beyond our reach if we look only under the sun.
Okay, so the teacher doesn't start with his own accomplishments. He starts with the world outside his window. He establishes this idea of futility by just observing the natural cycles, arguing that our work is, it's exactly the same, repetitive and wearisome.
This is the foundation of his whole argument in Chapter 1. He asks, what benefit do people get from all the effort they expend on Earth? What's the permanent return?
And the answer is?
The answer is stark. Nothing permanent. He starts with the largest possible scale. Yeah. Generations.
Right, and generation comes and a generation goes. But the Earth itself remains the same through the ages. We're just momentary flickers, individuals, entire civilizations, against the backdrop of this indifferent, unchanging planet.
Our lives are temporary. The planet itself is constant. And he moves immediately from that massive scale of generations down to the specific, mechanical, unending cycles of nature. Let's consider his examples. The sun. It rises, it sets, and it hurries away.
Only to return to the exact same place to rise again.
It's perpetual motion that results in zero net gain. If you think of the sun as a metaphor for human effort, we expend this tremendous energy every single day just to wind up back where we started 24 hours later.
That's a great analogy. It feels like the modern 24/7 news cycle or the relentless push for technological optimization. We move faster and faster, but the core problems we're trying to solve just recycle themselves.
Precisely. Then he shifts to the wind, which is a classic image of movement and change, but he points out it's still cyclical. It goes to the south, it circles around to the north, round and round, returning on its rounds.
This looks like it's going somewhere, but it always ends up completing the same exhausting loop.
And the water cycle is maybe the most wearisome example he brings up. Streams flow perpetually into the sea, but the sea is never full.
And where do the streams come from?
They flow again from where they started. It's an endless, self-replenishing system that guarantees continuous, repetitive labor with no resolution.
The outcome of watching all this constant, frantic, yet ultimately static activity is just overwhelming monotony.
Yes. The teacher concludes, all this monotony is tiresome. No one can bear to describe it. It's not just that the work is hard, it's that the work is pointless because the result is erased almost instantly by the next cycle.
You can see the psychological toll of that in the next line. The eye is never satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear ever content with hearing. We are constantly consuming new information, new sights, new entertainment, new challenges, but we never reach a point of satiation or, permanent fulfillment.
And this leads him to this powerful philosophical argument about the lack of true novelty. What exists now is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing truly new on Earth. Even if we invent new technology, say the internal combustion engine or artificial intelligence, human nature and the fundamental challenges of human activity remain essentially the same, we still struggle with greed, ambition, sorrow, and mortality.
That's a devastating thought for modern society, which is obsessed with disruption and innovation. The teacher's basically saying, you might change the surface tools, but you haven't changed the underlying human condition.
And what's fascinating here is how this cyclical observation connects to the broader human experience. History, for all its documentation of events, doesn't answer the ultimate meaning of life. Science observes these repetitive natural processes, but it can't imbue them with purpose. Mankind still struggles with the same essential recurring problems he has always had, a cycle of work that results only in weariness.
It's this foundational premise that the work itself is a burdensome task given to humanity, and it's marred by the fact that creation is operating under a curse. If you ignore that foundational presupposition, if you assume the world is perfectible by your own effort, you'll never understand why all this labor is so frustrating.
And that ties directly back to his under the sun limitation. Without that supernatural context, without a divine intervention that breaks the cycle, it is impossible for any human endeavor to have permanent value. Everything is constant motion, yet nothing is ultimately accomplished.
It's the ultimate treadmill.
So once that foundation of cyclical futility is established, the teacher pivots to his own massive real-world experiment. He wasn't just speculating from an armchair, he was actively testing. And as the king, he had the unique ability, the resources, and the wisdom to test every human pursuit to its absolute limit.
And he summarizes the core results with that famous, vivid metaphor, everything is chasing the wind.
That phrase, chasing the wind, it just encapsulates the entire source. It's the core image of the book, the striving for meaningless things that lack eternal significance. Our sources clarify that this list of vain pursuits includes, well, all human effort conducted under the sun, seeking immortality through fame, engaging in envious competition, and striving to make a lasting personal name for oneself.
He starts by examining secular accomplishment and the sheer physical and mental effort involved in toil. As king, he decided to carefully and thoroughly examine everything accomplished on earth, and his grand conclusion, again, is
everything he accomplished is fleeting, like chasing the wind. This frustration is tied so deeply to human limitation. He realized that no matter his power or his wisdom, there were inherent flaws in the world that he just could not fix. He states it plainly. What is bent cannot be straightened, and what is missing cannot be supplied.
That reflects the human inability to repair the world's inherent brokenness, right? Or to complete what is fundamentally lacking. It's a hard limit on our mastery of life.
We are incapable of perfecting our environment or ourselves.
And the despair isn't just about the futility of the output. It's about the crushing process itself. Human labor all day long produces pain and frustration. And the misery doesn't even end when the sun goes down. Even when the laborer tries to rest, even at night his mind cannot relax. The anxiety, the worry over the work, and its potential failure. It's just ceaseless. You can't escape it.
That ceaseless anxiety is the true cost of chasing the wind. But the ultimate despair for him comes from the problem of succession. The man who has labored with wisdom, knowledge, and skill must eventually die. He has to leave the entire fruit of his effort behind in the hands of a successor.
And the crucial, agonizing question is, Who knows if that successor will be wise or a fool?
Exactly.
He worked so hard, so wisely to build this lasting legacy, a kingdom, wealth, buildings, only to have to hand it all over to someone who might just tear it all down in 5 years, someone who didn't lift a finger to build it in the first place. He calls this
Futile and an awful injustice, and you can feel the pain in that. This is a profound moment of reflection on long-range change. If he must leave everything behind, if his labor is simply to feed the next generation who might squander it, he gains nothing of truly long-term personal or societal value.
it's just a temporary loan of effort.
That's all it is.
So if brute effort fails, the teacher moves to his second major experiment, the futility of secular wisdom itself. Solomon was, historically, the wisest man of his era. He acquired vast amounts of wisdom and knowledge, seeking to discern its real practical benefit over madness and folly. Yet his conclusion remained the same. Even this intellectual endeavor is like trying to chase the wind.
The irony here is just so thick. The downside of knowledge is absolutely startling. We usually celebrate accumulating knowledge, but he warns, "For with great wisdom comes great frustration. Whoever increases his knowledge merely increases his heartache."
Why, though? Why does more knowledge lead to more sorrow?
Because great wisdom reveals the true depth of the world's brokenness. It shows you the limitations of human power and the sheer number of problems that are unfixable. The wise man sees the errors, the injustices, the inevitable outcomes, but he lacks the divine power necessary to correct them.
And that disparity between understanding and capability.
Brings greater mental anguish and emotional sorrow.
I see. So the mistake is to assume man's wisdom can compete with God's. Using human intelligence alone to ferret out ultimate truth and significance is just inadequate because it delivers the same frustration as madness and folly. It doesn't break the cycle.
And the reason it doesn't break the cycle is the common fate. Wisdom may give you a temporary advantage. Light is better than darkness, he says, but the wise man and the fool share the exact same destiny.
Death. They both die.
Yeah.
And soon, both are forgotten.
Yep.
The wise man is not remembered for very long in the grand scheme.
Yep.
Solomon lamented, the benefits of wisdom are ultimately meaningless. It's a temporary reprieve, not a permanent solution.
So if wisdom and toil both fail, maybe pleasure and acquisition will succeed. And this leads to the third, and you could argue the most lavish experiment, the futility of self-indulgence and materialism. Solomon thought, okay, I will try self-indulgent pleasure wine, laughter, partying, to see if it is worthwhile.
He tested pleasure to its absolute limit, but found it was also ephemeral. It accomplished nothing of lasting value. It might provide temporary relief from grief or boredom, but the pursuit of pleasure for its own sake. It just yields a hollow life. It's an immediate gratification that leaves the well empty later.
Then he moved to the ultimate acquisition, leveraging the entirety of his vast royal resources. I mean, you have to imagine a contemporary figure who's the richest person in the world with the power of a king, dedicating his life to maximizing material pleasure. That's what he did. He built massive houses, planted sprawling vineyards, designed enormous royal gardens that required complex irrigation systems, constructed pools, and acquired immense livestock, more than anyone before him in Jerusalem.
He gathered staggering amounts of silver, gold, and treasures from every conquered region. He amassed male and female singers and a colossal harem. All the elements that define, as the source says, what gives a man sensual delight. The sources emphasize that he denied himself nothing that would bring temporary pleasure.
And this is the crux of the experiment. He wasn't testing a moderate life. He was testing the absolute maximum potential of human achievement and pleasure. And he was honest about the temporary result. He notes that all his accomplishments did give him temporary joy. That was his momentary reward for the tremendous effort.
But the final balance sheet is damning. When he reflected on the totality of the decades of effort he had expended, he concluded,
all these achievements and possessions are ultimately profitless, like chasing the wind. There is nothing gained from them on Earth. Even though he maintained his objectivity throughout the experiment, the lack of permanence just completely nullified the entire exercise.
He proved that a life devoted to maximizing human experience, wisdom, and wealth, a life under the sun, is a failure in terms of ultimate significance.
The key to finding lasting profit, therefore, is not found in human action, but in acknowledging what only God can do.
So if work, wisdom, and wealth are all dead ends, we have to look deeper into the fundamental mysteries of existence to understand the world we inhabit.
Right. The teacher shifts from documenting his personal experiments to documenting life's fundamental enigmas, those confusing, frustrating, or seemingly unjust elements that exist within the framework of life under the sun. And the first great enigma is time itself and the limits of human knowledge regarding divine providence.
This is the source of one of the most famous poetic passages in history. He introduces the list: a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot. He lists 8 pairs of opposites, highlighting that there is an appointed time for every single activity on earth.
And this is a declaration of divine control. Man is responsible to discern the right time for the right action. Wisdom tells us when to plant and when to uproot, but God is ultimately responsible for the timing of when those events actually occur.
We can plan, but God executes the schedule.
That's it. And the significance here is profound but tragic from a human perspective. God has made everything fit beautifully in its appropriate time. But then we encounter what the sources call the human handicap.
Which is?
But he has also placed ignorance in the human heart so that people cannot discover what God has ordained from the beginning to the end of their lives.
So we have this innate sense of the eternal. We desire ultimate significance. We want to know the why and the final consequence of our actions. But God has obscured our knowledge. We can't grasp the full plan.
We only see the short term, not the grand design.
And this inability to see the full consequence of our work beyond the grave is precisely why our labor lacks ultimate gratification. We toil diligently, but we can't know if that toil will lead to disaster or success 50 years down the line because we don't control the timing.
Precisely. In the light of God's complete orchestration of human affairs, our efforts can't change anything eternal. Any temporary advantage we gain from our toil is immediately nullified by our ignorance of divine providence. And this leads to a crucial conclusion. God's ultimate purpose in making things endure forever and obscuring our full knowledge is fundamentally pedagogical. It's to cause men to fear him, to acknowledge his sovereignty.
You fear God because you cannot control his timing or his ultimate outcome. And if you fail to acknowledge that, you run straight into the second great enigma, the problem of injustice and oppression. The teacher observed rampant wickedness, where justice and fairness should have been the norm.
This apparent injustice, seeing the corrupt judge, the powerful oppressor, it makes it extremely difficult for people to understand God's ways and respond properly. The teacher suggests God allows this human injustice to exist, in part to show people that they are like animals.
That sounds incredibly cynical. What does he mean by comparing man to an animal in that context?
He is observing the natural, corrupt trajectory of humanity when it's left to its own devices under the sun. Our reasoning becomes corrupted by animal instincts to have our own way, instincts of dominance, greed, survival, and we end up devouring one another.
We're spiritually and morally degraded by our own self-interest.
Exactly. And this leads naturally to the man-animal comparison regarding mortality. If we behave like animals, we share their fate. Both humans and animals share the same destiny, death. As one dies, so dies the other. Both have the same breath. There is no advantage for humans over animals, for both are fleeting.
Both come from the dust, and to dust both return. Our intellect, our ambition, our empires. None of it provides immunity from biological reality.
And this shared mortality, when you couple it with the observation of rampant, unpunished injustice, drives the teacher to his most pessimistic conclusion. He reflects on the oppressed, those suffering in tears with no one to comfort or deliver them, and he considers those who are dead and gone more fortunate than those still alive to face the abuse.
But then he takes it a step further. He says the most fortunate of all is one who has never been born and has not seen the evil things that are done on earth. That level of despair. It speaks volumes about a life lived strictly under the sun, where the oppressed have no hope of lasting justice, redress, or eternal reward. It's a chilling condemnation of a purely secular existence.
And this brings us to the final enigma in this section, the problem of retribution. Solomon observed exceptions to that simple, comforting dogma that the righteous always prosper and the wicked always suffer in this lifetime. The inequality in divine providence, it complicates everything and adds confusion to the human experience.
We see this all the time, he observed. Sometimes a righteous person dies prematurely in spite of his righteousness, and sometimes a wicked person lives long in spite of his evil deeds. He's quote, "We do not always get what we expect or what we feel we deserve. The temporal rewards are unreliable."
And what's the societal consequence of this imbalance? The wicked boast, and they flaunt their irreligion. They display their ill-gotten gains, sometimes even in sacred spaces without any fear of divine retribution. When punishment is delayed, the source notes, the human heart is encouraged to do evil. People conclude, if there are no immediate consequences, why bother being good?
This apparent injustice is an enigma that human wisdom alone cannot solve. Wisdom cannot enable us to fully understand why God deals with people as he does. It requires trust, not intellectual mastery.
And the futility extends from these great philosophical pursuits and divine enigmas right down to the most mundane aspects of our daily human interactions. If the drive is simply secular achievement, it almost inevitably leads to destructive social dynamics, starting with competition and envy.
The rat race.
The rat race, exactly. The teacher observed that much of the skillful work that seems productive on the surface is nothing more than competition between one person and another.
The motive isn't necessarily excellence, but that overwhelming drive to be superior to your neighbor, to keep up appearances, or to acquire status symbols.
This constant, exhausting drive for external validation is entirely profitless, like chasing the wind. It's an arms race that never ends. And he contrasts the two extremes of dealing with this pressure.
Right, on one side you have the frantic scramble for status, working 80 hours a week to acquire things you don't even need. And on the other, you have the foolish dropout, the complacent person who just folds his hands and does no work and basically starves himself out of existence.
And the wise counsel he offers is the balanced, moderate middle path. Better is one handful with some rest than two hands full of toil and chasing the wind. Envy, greed, and the feverish pursuit of prestige don't result in ultimate significance. They just result in exhaustion and anxiety.
The teacher then examines the folly of working independently just to accumulate more, the extreme workaholic. He pictures this solitary man obsessed with riches who is never satisfied, toiling without a companion, without children or siblings. His lament is incredibly powerful. For whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure?
That solitude makes his burdensome task doubly futile because he has no one to share his temporary profit with. And this is why the teacher commends sharing and cooperation as a momentary, non-futile human benefit. Two people are better than one because they can reap more benefit from their labor. This is a practical advantage, a small victory against futility.
He lists immediate practical benefits that are tangible and experienced under the sun: mutual help if one falls, shared warmth if two lie down together, and strength against an assailant's security in numbers.
And the ultimate image of collaboration is the ultimate strength, moving from a pair to a group. A three-stranded cord is not quickly broken. The workaholic, whose heart is wedded only to his projects and not to other people, he misses the immediate, tangible profit found in community and companionship. It's one of the few things that yields reliable, short-term satisfaction.
The next folly is seeking prestige and popularity, thinking that these advantages will provide ultimate satisfaction. The example is the dramatic rise of a poor but wise youth who ascends from prison to kingship, the ultimate Cinderella story, the peak of human glory and adoration.
But the teacher is cynical about the longevity of fame. He notes that even after reaching this pinnacle, future generations will not rejoice in him. A new youth will always come along, and the public will always turn their attention to the next big thing.
So since it's impossible to achieve universal, lasting acceptance, staking your ultimate happiness or self-fulfillment on popularity or fame is just foolish.
It's profitless, like chasing the wind. It fades, just like the scent of perfume.
And finally, the teacher turns his eye toward the institutions meant to serve the people, the government. He describes a corrupt system of hierarchy, a pyramid scheme of power, extortion of the poor, and perversion of justice. The high official is watched by a higher official, and so on up the chain.
This paints a deeply cynical but, sadly realistic picture. The king and his subordinates will always profit at the expense of those they are supposed to serve, seizing the produce of the land. The teacher warns us not to be astonished by this because it is simply the nature of power when men choose their own evil schemes rather than submitting to a higher moral authority.
It's an inevitable result of life under the sun.
Since wisdom is generally deemed preferable to folly, it offers temporary advantages after all. The teacher provides instruction on how to apply wisdom, but also stresses its severe limits and how easily it can be nullified. He starts with the proper application of wisdom in God's presence.
His counsel for approaching the divine is incredibly practical. It's focused on your internal disposition, not external ritual. It's not about flashy sacrifice, but thoughtful preparation. Draw near to listen, rather than to offer a sacrifice like fools, who are so rash they don't even realize they're doing wrong.
We approach God not by telling him things, but by first listening to him.
And the danger of words is acute. Do not be rash or hasty with vows, he says, because God is in heaven and man is on earth. It is better not to vow at all than to vow and not pay.
Because an unfulfilled rash vow can make God angry, and that anger can destroy the work of your hands.
He compares rash vows to many dreams that come from anxiety. Just as many scattered, meaningless dreams lose their meaning and produce confusion, so do many carelessly spoken words. The proper response to this danger, the antidote to rashness, is
Is fear.
simple. Therefore, fear God.
And wisdom also has its immediate, tangible power against earthly threats. Wisdom provides protection, just as money provides a kind of protection and security. But the distinct advantage of wisdom is that wisdom preserves the life of its owner. It can give a wise person more protection and foresight than 10 rulers might have in a city. It provides temporal safety.
But here is where we hit the ceiling of human ability. Wisdom is not a completely reliable shield against adversity. Even Solomon, after dedicating his immense mind to comprehending everything, concluded that certain things are simply beyond human understanding. It is far deeper than anyone can fathom.
His own wisdom, the greatest available to humanity, could not ward off all confusion or adversity.
What's most alarming, and what we should pay close attention to today, is the fragility of wisdom. It can be so easily nullified by a small amount of folly or sin.
The teacher uses an unforgettable visceral warning that really brings the point home. One dead fly makes the perfumer's ointment give off a rancid stench, so a little folly can outweigh much wisdom.
That is such a powerful, pungent image. It only takes one small mistake, one ethical slip, one piece of folly, like a dead fly in an otherwise perfect, expensive jar of perfume, to ruin a life of great wisdom and achievement.
Right. The value of the wise are heard in quiet, measured counsel, but one moment of folly can destroy so much that is good. Think of a long, distinguished career ruined by a single scandal.
That is the modern equivalent exactly.
Yeah.
The achievement is great, but the stability is precarious.
And finally, there is the devastating conclusion regarding human ability when faced with the unpredictability of the world. Wisdom, speed, and strength. They are not guarantees of success. The race is not always won by the swiftest. The battle is not always won by the strongest.
And the reason for this great equalizer.
For time and chance may overcome them all. Everyone is subject to sudden, unavoidable misfortune that they cannot anticipate or control, like fish caught in a deadly net or birds caught in a sudden snare.
That's a devastating point for those who trust only in their own merit or ability. Your wisdom does not guarantee a prosperous future or immunity from random chance.
The wise person cannot be more certain of his earthly future than the fool because he does not know God's appointed time for any situation. He might have better odds, but the guarantee is gone.
So after documenting all the futility from nature's cycles, the sting of death, the limits of wisdom, the inevitability of injustice, the teacher pivots. If permanence is impossible under the sun, what is the best possible way to navigate this frustrating, ephemeral existence? He arrives at the conclusion that enjoyment is the solution, but only as a gift from God.
This becomes the core recurring recommendation. It's a profound pivot from cynicism to gratitude. There is nothing better for people than to eat and drink and to find enjoyment in their work. Since we cannot expect permanent, world-altering changes to come out of our labor, the best we can do is enjoy the fruits of our efforts and find satisfaction in the work itself while we can.
And the key insight here isn't just have fun, it's that this ability to find enjoyment is a gift, an enablement from God. Our sources use that specific Hebrew term, kelek, which means allotment or lot in life or reward.
God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to the one who pleases him. It's not something we can manufacture through sheer willpower or acquisition.
If God enables a person to enjoy their wealth and possessions, the teacher notes that he does not think much about the fleeting days of his life because God keeps him preoccupied with the joy he derives from his activity.
This God-given joy serves as a crucial psychological barrier, distracting us from the depressing reality of impermanence and the constant cycling of hevel.
But this joy, being a gift, is fragile. It can be thwarted by adversity or our own corrupt nature. The teacher warns of a grave misfortune. God gives a man wealth and property, but denies him the ability to enjoy the fruit of his labor.
Instead, someone else enjoys it. Or the miser hoards it to his own misery, paralyzed by anxiety.
And the futility of this unenjoyed wealth is profound. He says it's worse than being stillborn.
The miserable rich man, who lives a long life but never enjoys his prosperity, has no more rest than the stillborn child, who at least had freedom from toil, anxiety, and misery. The stillborn child never saw the light, yet it has more rest than the man whose entire life was consumed by gathering wealth he refused to use.
The human craving for more is the central internal obstacle. All man's labor is for nothing more than to fill his stomach, yet his appetite is never satisfied. This perpetual longing is profitless. The alternative is contentment. It is better to be content with what the eyes can see than for one's heart always to crave more. This continual longing is futile like chasing the wind.
The teacher then tells us how to approach daily life in view of the one unavoidable reality: death. Life, even a dishonored life, has advantages over death. A live dog is better than a dead lion.
Right, a dog, though despised, is alive. And the living know they will die, can still hope and enjoy God's gifts. The dead lion, though majestic in life, knows nothing, has no further reward, and its memory disappears.
This sets up the command to act with present joy. Go, eat your food with joy and drink your wine with a happy heart, because God has already approved your works. You must find satisfaction in the immediate moment, in the tangible gifts of the day, because you cannot rely on the permanence of tomorrow.
And this command to enjoy life is paired immediately with extreme diligence. Whatever you find to do with your hands, do it with all your might, because there is neither work nor planning, nor knowledge nor wisdom in the grave, the place where you will eventually go.
Sooner or later, all opportunities for work, enjoyment, and reward will cease entirely. The teacher urges urgency in our current labor.
And finally, the teacher brings the entire experiment home by turning to the stark reality of physical decline that precedes death. He urges us to remember the Creator while we are still capable, in the days of your youth before the difficult days come. This is a stunning, poetic, and memorable passage detailing the decline of the body. We really need to dwell on these metaphors.
He describes the gradual fading of our senses and physical strength. The failing eyesight is described as the sun, moon, and stars growing dark. The light is fading. The hands and arms that once kept watch and provided strength are now described as those who tremble. The spine, once rigid, is now the virile men who must stoop over.
Our hearing loss is the doors along the street being shut, preventing the entrance of sound. Our once strong teeth are the grinders ceasing because they grow few. The simple rhythmic sound of the grinding mill, the work of the day, grows low. It's a painful visual of aging in a pre-industrial world.
And then the final extinguishing of life itself, using metaphors of ultimate value and utility. We have the removal of the silver cord, the breaking of the golden bowl, and the pitcher shattered at the well, or the water wheel broken at the cistern. These images signify the extinguishing of the light, the end of vital energy, and the destruction of the vessel that contained life.
The result is immediate and irreversible. The dust returns to the earth as it was, and the life's breath returns to God who gave it. Man, in all his wisdom, all his striving, cannot break this cycle of life and death. Our great human experiment ends with a return to dust.
And with that, the teacher rests his case. The thesis is restated one last time with the full weight of his comprehensive experiments behind it. Absolutely futile. All human work and wisdom are ultimately ephemeral, lacking ultimate substance or worth in this life.
But then comes the ultimate pivot, the final counsel that transcends the boundaries of life under the sun. After detailing everything that is futile, he declares the ultimate conclusion.
Fear God and keep his commandments, because this is the whole duty of man.
This is the only lasting profit of living. The value of life is found not in accumulating wealth or achieving permanence in the material world, but in fearing him and obeying his word.
And why? Because the experiment doesn't end here. There is a reckoning. God will evaluate every deed, including every secret thing, whether good or evil.
The ultimate purpose, hidden from us through that human handicap, is revealed to be moral and spiritual, not intellectual or material. What a journey. We started with the grand, futile experiments in wisdom and wealth, charted the stark, depressing realities of injustice and cyclical death, and concluded with a singular, transcendent command. The teacher's analysis provides a crucial balance for you, the learner. We are called to diligent work and enjoyment of life. Those are genuine, temporary gifts from God. But we must submit to the ultimate reality that we cannot fully comprehend God's plans or divine providence.
So the value of our effort is not found in achieving permanent material profit, fame, or philosophical mastery under the sun.
No, it is found in serving God acceptably while we can, leaving the enigmas of life in his hands. It changes the goalpost from achievement to obedience.
It really does.
And the sources underscore a powerful, sobering truth. Neither the progress of revelation nor the progress of civilization has proved the teacher's advice false. We are still caught in the endless cycle of work, ambition, and eventual disappointment, even with all our technological advancements.
So we leave you with this provocative thought to mull over. Given the continued human tendency toward striving, and the incredible speed and scale of modern ambition, what contemporary human endeavor today, be it generating viral social media influence, the accumulation of intangible digital assets, or the frantic search for radical biolongevity, what most perfectly embodies chasing the wind, and how might applying the teacher's final counsel change how you approach that pursuit?
think about that until our next deep dive.